Most people think retiring early is only for rich people, millionaires, tech founders, people with giant stock portfolios. But that's not true. In fact, some people who retire at 58 end up safer financially than people who retire at 67, even with less money. Sounds backwards, right? Because we've been told the same thing our entire life. Work longer, save more, retire later. That sounds smart, responsible, safe. But for a lot of people, that strategy quietly creates a trap, a very expensive trap. And the closer you get to 61, the more dangerous it becomes. Because retirement is not just about how much money you have. It's about something else, something almost nobody talks about, a hidden ratio. And once you understand it, you may realize waiting longer could actually make retirement harder, not easier. Most people believe retirement is just math, simple math. Save a big number, work until 65, then relax. That's the dream. And honestly, it sounds logical, because financial advice everywhere says the same thing. Max your 401k, delay retirement, wait for Social Security, keep building your nest egg. And for years, people repeat this advice like it's guaranteed truth. Parents say it, financial TV says it, coworkers say it. Just work a few more years. Sounds harmless, right? But here's the problem. Those extra years don't always increase security. Sometimes they increase risk, because life after 55 changes fast. Energy changes, health changes, stress changes, and most people never plan for that part. They only plan for the money, not the human being holding the money. That's the hidden mistake. And this is where the entire retirement conversation starts to break apart. Here's what most people miss. Retirement is not about how much money you have. It's about how long your life still works the way you expect. That's a huge difference. And honestly, most people never think about retirement that way. They only think about the account balance, the number, the target, the finish line. But retirement is not just a math problem. It's a life problem. Because people think, if I work 5 more years, I'll be safer. And maybe that's true, but maybe not. Because those 5 years come with a cost, a hidden cost, a cost nobody includes in the spreadsheet. More stress, more exhaustion, more doctor visits, more dependence on one paycheck, more pressure to keep performing, even when your body is asking you to slow down. And this matters more than people realize, because after 55, life can change very quickly. Energy changes, sleep changes, recovery changes. Even small stress starts feeling heavier. Things that felt easy at 40 suddenly feel exhausting at 60. And here's the scary part. A lot of people hit their highest income right before their life gets hardest. That changes everything. Suddenly, you're making more money than ever. Your salary looks amazing. Your retirement account is growing. From the outside, everything looks successful. But privately, you're taking more medication, feeling more tired, recovering slower, worrying more. Maybe your back hurts more. Maybe your blood pressure is rising. Maybe work stress follows you home every night. But you keep going because you think, I'm close, just a few more years. And sometimes, those few more years become the hardest years of your life. That's the part nobody talks about. Because traditional retirement advice assumes one dangerous thing, that your body, your energy, your job, and your health will cooperate forever. But real life doesn't work that way. Companies change, markets change, health changes, and sometimes life changes overnight. Sometimes layoffs happen at 60, right when finding another job becomes harder. Sometimes burnout hits at 58, and suddenly the career you spent decades building starts feeling unbearable. Sometimes health problems arrive before retirement does, and that can completely change the plan. A lot of people assume they'll choose when to retire, but sometimes life chooses for them. And when that happens, people realize something painful. They spent decades preparing financially for retirement without preparing emotionally, physically, or practically. They built retirement around a number instead of building it around stability, and those are not the same thing. Because stability means your life can survive stress. A number alone can't do that. That's why some people with smaller savings feel calm, while others with much bigger portfolios still feel trapped. One built flexibility, the other built dependence. And once you see that difference, you start understanding why simply working longer does not always make retirement safer.
And honestly, this problem is not just financial. It's emotional, because a lot of people are not trying to feel secure. They're trying to feel successful. And those are not the same thing. Big difference. Think about it. Most people don't wake up thinking, how can I reduce pressure in my life? Instead, they think, how can I look like I'm doing well? So slowly, without even realizing it, life gets more expensive. People upgrade the house, upgrade the car, upgrade vacations, upgrade restaurants, upgrade phones, upgrade clothes, upgrade neighborhoods. Not because they truly need to, but because their income increased and because everybody around them is doing the same thing. This is lifestyle inflation, and it quietly destroys retirement freedom. Not overnight, slowly, silently, year after year, because every upgrade creates a new monthly obligation, a bigger payment, a bigger insurance bill, a bigger property tax bill, a bigger lifestyle to maintain. And eventually, your life starts needing constant income just to stay standing. That's the trap. From the outside, it looks like success. Inside, it creates pressure, and social pressure makes it even worse. You see friends still working, neighbors buying expensive things, coworkers talking about bigger homes and luxury vacations. Social media makes it worse too. Everybody looks successful online. Nobody shows the stress behind it. Nobody posts the credit card bill. Nobody posts the sleepless nights. Nobody posts the fear of losing their paycheck. So your brain starts comparing, and comparison is expensive because suddenly a perfectly good life starts feeling not enough. That's dangerous because now you're no longer making financial decisions based on freedom. You're making them based on appearances. And here's the scary part. A lot of people delay retirement not because they need more money, but because they're scared to stop proving something. To family, to friends, to society, to old coworkers, and sometimes to themselves. Because work becomes tied to identity. Their job becomes their status. Their income becomes their self-worth. So retiring early feels scary, not financially, emotionally. Because deep down, they worry that stopping work means losing importance. And most people never say this out loud, but they feel it. That's why some people with $700,000 retire peacefully, while others with $2 million still feel trapped. One person built freedom, the other built pressure. One learned how to lower stress, the other kept raising the standard of what felt normal. And eventually, their lifestyle became too heavy to escape. That's why retirement is not just about money habits, it's about emotional habits too. Because the moment your happiness depends on constantly spending more, freedom becomes harder and harder to reach. And those are completely different lives. So let's talk about the real idea behind this video. The rich ratio. Because wealth is not just about how much money sits in your account. That's only part of the picture. The real question is, how much pressure does your life create every month? Because real financial freedom is not about looking rich. It's about needing less. It's about the relationship between what you need and what your life costs to maintain. That's the ratio. And honestly, this changes the way you see retirement completely. Because most people think wealth means bigger portfolio, bigger income, bigger house, bigger lifestyle. But bigger is not always safer. Sometimes bigger creates fragility. Think about retirement like carrying water. Most people focus on the size of the bucket. How big is my retirement account? How much did I save? How big is my portfolio? And yes, that matters, but they ignore something even more important. the leak at the bottom. Their spending, their stress, their debt, their lifestyle, their monthly obligations, their emotional dependence on income. So even with a giant bucket, the water disappears fast. And the bigger the leak, the faster the pressure grows. That's why some high-income people still feel financially anxious all the time, because their lifestyle consumes everything. Meanwhile, someone else has a smaller bucket, but almost no leak. Smaller house, lower expenses, less debt, less pressure, more flexibility, more control over their time. And strangely, that person often feels richer. Not because they have more money, because they need less money to feel secure. That's the rich ratio. Not how much money do I have, but how much pressure does my life require every month. That changes everything. Because two people can have the exact same retirement account and experience completely different retirements. One feels trapped, the other feels free. One constantly worries about running out of money, the other sleeps peacefully. And the difference is usually not the portfolio, it's the lifestyle attached to the portfolio. Because if your life needs $9,000 a month, you're not financially free. You're financially fragile, even with a huge portfolio. Because now retirement depends on maintaining a very expensive system. And expensive systems are harder to protect, especially during inflation, market crashes, health problems, or unexpected emergencies. But if your life only needs $3,500 a month, everything changes. Now your savings last longer, your stress drops lower, your flexibility increases, and retirement becomes possible much earlier. This is why some people can retire before 61 without hitting some giant magic number, because they reduced the pressure, not just increased the savings. They built a life that costs less energy to maintain, less money, less stress, less dependence. And honestly, that's a form of wealth most people completely overlook, because society teaches people to increase lifestyle first and freedom later. But the people who retire peacefully usually do the opposite. They protect flexibility first, then build everything else around it. And most people never realize this until very late. Usually after decades of chasing a number, without realizing the real problem was the leak the entire time. So why do most people still struggle? Even after decades of working hard, even after saving money, even after doing everything right? Because the system around them is fragile, and fragile systems break under pressure. That's the real problem. Most people don't build retirement on stability, they build it on assumptions, and assumptions can fail very quickly. Here's failure point number 1. Timing. This is bigger than people realize. A lot of people plan retirement assuming markets always go up. Not every year, but eventually. That's what they've been told. Just stay invested, markets recover. And long-term, that's usually true. But retirement timing changes everything. Because what if the market crashes right before retirement? Or right after? Now suddenly, your savings drop 20%, maybe 30%, maybe even more. And emotionally, that's devastating. Because now retirement feels dangerous. The future suddenly feels uncertain. And fear changes behavior fast. People panic. They delay retirement. They sell investments too early. They lose confidence. And this happens more often than people think, especially when somebody retires during economic uncertainty. That's why timing risk is so dangerous, not just financially, emotionally. Failure point number 2. Debt. This is where everything breaks, because debt removes flexibility. People enter their 60s still carrying mortgages, car payments, credit cards, personal loans, and medical debt. Some are even helping adult children financially, and suddenly retirement income starts getting eaten alive by monthly bills. So retirement stops feeling like freedom and starts feeling like survival. That's exhausting, because instead of asking, what do I want to do with my life, people ask, how do I keep paying everything? And stress gets heavier when income becomes fixed, because expenses keep rising even when paychecks stop. Failure point number 3. One income source. This is huge. And honestly, most people underestimate how risky this is. If your entire life depends on one paycheck, then losing that paycheck becomes terrifying because now your whole lifestyle depends on staying employed. And companies know this. That's why older workers often feel trapped, not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, because their system has no flexibility, no backup income, no margin for error, no breathing room. So they keep working, even when they're burned out, even when their health is declining, even when they desperately want freedom, because walking away feels financially impossible. And failure point number 4, emotional spending. This one is sneaky. Stress spending, reward spending, bored spending, I deserve this spending. And after decades of hard work, people feel entitled to comfort, which is understandable, but small leaks become giant leaks over time. A few subscriptions, frequent shopping, expensive habits, luxury upgrades, convenience spending, tiny decisions repeated thousands of times, and eventually, those small emotional purchases quietly reshape an entire financial future. That's the scary part, because most people never notice the damage while it's happening. They only notice later when retirement feels heavier than expected. And eventually, people realize something painful. They spent decades building an expensive life instead of a stable one, a life that looked successful but required constant income to survive. And once retirement arrives, that pressure finally becomes impossible to ignore.
Let me show you what this looks like. Meet David. David is 60 years old, makes good money, about $140,000 a year, nice house, luxury SUV, country club membership. From the outside, David looks successful. But behind the scenes, things are tight. Still has a mortgage, still helping adult kids financially, still stressed about layoffs. And secretly, David is terrified of retiring because his lifestyle needs constant income. Now meet Carlos. Carlos is also 60, but his life looks very different. Smaller home, used car, lower monthly bills. For years, Carlos focused on reducing pressure instead of increasing status. At first, people thought David was winning. Better car, bigger vacations, bigger lifestyle. But 10 years later, Carlos retired peacefully at 59. David is still working at 70. Not because David was lazy, not because Carlos was smarter, because one built a life that required constant income, while the other built a system designed for freedom. That's the difference. And once you see it, you start realizing retirement is less about reaching a giant number and more about lowering the amount of life your money has to support.
So what should people actually do? Here's a simpler framework. Step 1. Lower the pressure before retirement. This matters more than most people realize. Reduce unnecessary expenses. Pay down debt. Simplify life. Not because being cheap is good, because flexibility is powerful. Step 2. Build income layers. Social Security, investments, part-time work, cash savings, maybe rental income. The goal is not one giant income source. The goal is stability, because stable systems survive stress better. And step 3, protect your health like an asset. This is massively underrated because retirement is useless if your body is exhausted. A lot of people sacrifice health chasing one more promotion, one more bonus, one more year, then finally retire without the energy to enjoy life. That's heartbreaking. And honestly, this may be the most important part of the entire video. Money matters, but healthy years matter too. You do not get unlimited time.
Now imagine two people. Same age, same income, same retirement savings, but different systems. Person A keeps upgrading life. Bigger house, higher bills, more stress, more dependence on work. Person B focuses on freedom, lower expenses, flexible lifestyle, health, emergency savings. 10 years later, Person A still needs permission to stop working. Person B doesn't. One retirement feels fragile. The other feels calm. And that emotional difference, that's real wealth. Not appearances, not status, not looking rich online. Just peace.